You remember during the financial crisis, Rahm Emanuel, who was going to become Obama's chief of staff and then go on to become the mayor of Chicago and preside over the decline of Chicago into chaos and crime and murder. He said, you should never let a crisis go to waste. And of course, what he meant by that is when there's a crisis, people panic and you can stuff left-wing laws and regulations and ideas down their throats, because normally people protect their freedoms. They want their freedoms, especially in America, where our freedoms are kind of in our blood. We've inherited this tradition of liberty. We know that we're supposed to be free. And so you need a crisis to make people panic and take their freedoms away. I'm watching this Brett Kavanaugh thing as this devolves into really a circus. At this point is a circus in which the Democrats are really just using this woman's unsubstantiated charges to delay the process. Their hope is that they can delay the process until after the midterm elections so that people up for election, Democrats up for election in red states, won't have to cast a difficult vote against Kavanaugh and then get punished for it at the polls. That's one thing they want. And then in the outside chance they take back the Senate, then they can just delay the Supreme Court pick forever. And that's the plan. That is the plan. It's not about sexual justice. It's not about this woman. It's not about her pain. But they're always, always, always using the same argument. And the argument is you should give up your liberty because feelings, give up your liberty because it's a crisis, because my identity, because I'm a victim, because look at my sad face. Give up your Yes, okay. Humankind has crawled for thousands of years out of the muck of slavery, out of the muck of savagery. It used to be that if you were living a slave of the Pharaoh died, they buried you with the Pharaoh. You were dead. It took thousands and thousands of years for people to crawl up into the idea of individuality. People fought and died. Mothers lost their sons on battlefields. Yes. The Constitution, greatest piece of political writing ever done, ever. It's a completely unique document enclosing the wisdom of thousands of years. Yes, but I'm sad. Give it back. Give us your freedom back, please, because it's a woman. It's a woman. Are you going to hurt a woman by being free? Oh my goodness gracious, do not do that. She's a victim. She has an identity. Her identity. She's gay, she's black, she's short, she's tall. Give up your freedom because this is a crisis. It is a crisis and we're sad. It's always the same argument. And the argument kind of got its strength, got its power from the restoration of rights to black people in this country, which was a true injustice, and it required federal action against states' rights. Remember, during the time of segregation, when the Democrats were fighting for segregation down in the South, they called them Dixiecrats because they were the Democrats down in Dixie. When they were fighting to maintain the Jim Crow laws that they put in place after the Civil War that they lost, when they were fighting to keep blacks from voting, the Supreme Court had to step in, the federal government had to step in with the civil rights law, and that is the template that they always want to use. But of course, that was an exception because a segment of American citizens were being kept by Democrats, were being kept out of the constitutional system. So it was an exception because they were being deprived of their constitutional rights. It doesn't make any sense to say because they were being deprived of their constitutional rights, we should get rid of the Constitution. No, we should enforce the Constitution in everybody's lives. But in these cases, in all the other cases that come out of this, the gay rights and the women's rights and the Me Too movement, it's always the same argument. The argument is give up your rights because a victim is being oppressed, because their identity is oppressed, because they have the SADS. They feel, look how brave the accuser is, give up your rights. So right now, we've got this guy, Brett Kavanaugh, by all accounts, a guy who's lived an unimpeachable life. Woman after woman has come forward saying what a great guy is. Women who have dated him have come forward. And now this one woman says that 35 years ago, in a drunken party, she can't remember exactly when, she can't remember exactly where, he climbed on top of her, pushed her into a room, locked the door, climbed on top of her, and felt her up, and she thought he was going to rape her. He says he wasn't even at the party. He says he may not even know the woman. He says, that he certainly didn't do it. He's never done anything like this. And so the Republicans, caught in the Me Too trap because the victims and all this, say, okay, due process, let's have a hearing, bring them in Monday. Christine Blasey Ford is now saying, nope, not coming in. This is the latest. Now, it all may change, but the latest is she said her lawyer sent a letter saying she wants an FBI investigation of her charges, which is absurd because that's not the way the FBI works, right? The FBI investigates federal charges. This would be a state crime if it happened 35 years ago. If it's not a felony, it would be past the statute of limitations. The FBI, when they do a background check, which they've done 6 times on Brett Kavanaugh, if there's a charge, they bring that charge to the Senate, which then investigates, if it wants to, by having a hearing, which the Republicans are offering to do on Monday. But no, because that's not the point. It was never the point. So all we want, all the left and its media, which is basically the mainstream media, want is the emotions to carry you away, to create a sense of crisis, to create a sense of victimhood, a sense of the preservation of these identities that they have invented and they've divided us all into, so that you give up those thousands of years of rights, those rights that were fashioned in blood and death and human thought and human enterprise and climbing. Give them up, because it's a woman. It's a woman. It's a woman. So I have to start this by playing this cut of Anna Marie Cox. And I don't want to pick on Anna Marie Cox. She ran this website, Wonquette, where she talked about all the sex people were having in Washington and all this. She became a Christian, I think, about 3 years ago, and I've heard her talk about her Christianity, and it's not my idea of Christianity. She says nobody's born evil, where Christians really believe that everybody's not born evil, they're just born broken, and they do bad things. They have a tendency to do, all of us have a tendency to do bad things. But now this is her standard that she puts forward on MSNBC for how Brett Kavanaugh should be judged if he has to come forward and testify on Monday, which he has said he is more than willing to do.
We need to judge Brett Kavanaugh not just on what he may or may not have done, but how he treats a woman's pain. And that is something I'm going to be paying attention to on Monday. How does he respond to what is happening, whether or not he agrees that this happened with her? Does he take her pain seriously? Do the people interrogating her take her pain seriously? Now, I'll give you a spoiler alert. I don't think Brett Kavanaugh takes women's pain very seriously, and I know that because of the decisions he's made as a judge. But I think that to have that unfold on national television live will be quite instructive.
Now, follow the logic of that. He's making decisions as a judge, as he has repeatedly said, on the basis of the law, but not on the basis of a woman's pain? You mean the Anglo-American system of law, which is one of the treasures of humanity? It is one of the it's like a cathedral that humanity built. Again, sweat, blood, thousands of years, Anglo-American law, huzzah, but a woman's pain. A woman's pain. And listen, none of us wants to see women in pain. We all have women in our lives. We love the women in our lives. People keep saying to me, oh, if this happened to your daughter, you'd punch the guy out. And the answer to that is because they want to personalize it. They want to make it an emotional thing for me. But the thing is, if somebody did this to my daughter, I would punch him out. But if somebody did this to my daughter and I found out about it 35 years later and the guy had lived an unimpeachable life, I would not punch him out. That would be insane. That would be graceless. That would be unforgiving. It would be inhuman. Of course, if I found out about it 35 years later and the guy had lived a good life since then, I just have to let it go. I'd have to deal with my pain. That's the way it would be. But now it's this kind of bullying idea that somehow the accuser's courage and pain overrides the rights. Here is Brooke Baldwin on CNN. Just listen to the bullying tone here. Well, you want him to have due process. It's the accused who gets due process, right? The accused who gets due process. But what about the woman?
I gotta push back a little bit. What process is there when you are a woman who suffered sexual and physical assault, allegedly, who is all of a sudden realizing this past summer that the person she says assaulted her is the guy who could be the next justice on the U.S. Supreme Court?
Absolutely. So when I'm talking about process,
hang on.
Okay.
Hang on. None of us can begin to understand what that process, her own process, looks like, to then have the guts to come forward and write a letter, at first anonymously, because she feared the lashing which has begun. So I'm just saying, when you say the process, hang on.
It's emotional bullying. No one can understand what oh my goodness, the pain, the suffering. And again, Maybe so. I'm not attacking Christine Blasey Ford. I'm not attacking her. You know, I don't know what she remembers or what she misremembers, but due process is more important than her pain. The Constitution, more important than her pain. Our liberties, more important than her pain. And I know it's sad, we feel for it, but that's not a reason to give up your rights or the rights of Brett Kavanaugh or his judgeship. All right. So, of course, you know, Joe Biden also said this, by the way. Joe Biden said exactly you remember Joe Biden, the former vice president with the brains of an ashtray. He said, for a woman to come forward in the glaring lights of focus nationally, you've got to start off with the presumption that at least the essence of what she's talking about is real. Whether or not she forgets facts, whether or not it's been made worse or better over time, Biden said. No, you don't. No, you don't. I mean, I'm sorry. If she's courageous, she's courageous. But if she doesn't show up on Monday, they should vote. And by the way, if you're a man, if you have an opinion about this, like me, and you're a man, the senator from Hawaii, Mazie Hirono, I guess her name is pronounced, she has something, a little message for you. Here it is.
Of course it helps that there are women on that committee. But you know what? I expect the men in this country and the men in this committee, and many of them, believe me, because we all signed on to this letter to demand an FBI investigation. But really, guess who's perpetuating all of these kinds of actions? It's the men in this country. And I just want to say to the men in this country, just shut up and step up. Do the right thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just shut up. Just shut up, man. Because it's all, you know, when you get to the point of, if you're not going to deal with rationality, if you're not going to deal with the law, if you're not going to follow process, and if it's all emotion, it's all bullying. You know who gets this right again? Donald Trump is playing this really well. He's being much more restrained than he usually is. Just listen to what Trump had to say, because it's important.
I feel so badly for him that he's going through this, to be honest with you. I feel so badly for him. This is not a man that deserves this. This should have been brought to the fore. It should have been brought up long ago. And that's what you have hearings for. You don't wait till the hearing is over and then all of a sudden bring it up. When Senator Feinstein sat with Judge Kavanaugh for a long period of time, a long, long meeting, she had this letter. Why didn't she bring it up? Why didn't she bring it up then? Why didn't the Democrats bring it up then? Because they obstruct and because they resist. That's the name of their campaign against me. They just resist. And they just obstruct. And frankly, I think they're lousy on policy, and in many ways, they're lousy politicians, but they're very good on obstruction. And it's a shame, because this is a great gentleman. With all of that, I feel that the Republicans, and I can speak for myself, we should go through a process, because there shouldn't even be a little doubt.
Because Brett Kavanaugh has feelings too. That's why we don't give up our rights. We stick to the process.